Yo, what is up, everybody? It's your boy Soto here with Autumn Windbags, back with another one. Okay, we used to have this segment during the show called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. For whatever reason, we stopped doing it. So I said, you know what? Let me make The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly its own show. So you're going to get this, hopefully, cross your fingers, every week, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of what's happening in Raider Nation. All right, the aim of The Good, the Bad, the Ugly is to take a look at 3 stories involving Raider Nation with a little bit of a twist, so it may not be always what you think it is. Today, we're going to look at a former player that's saying happy trails, another former player that's coming back, and even a third former player who just cannot stop talking about the Raiders. We're going to get to all that. Before we do, I want to make sure everyone please like, comment, and subscribe to the Autumn Windbags. It's a great way to support the channel. All right, let's get to it. All right, first we're going to start with the good. Now, I understand that me and this player may not have always had the best relationship, but I'm always super excited when a person retires from their job. It shows me that they've done all they wanted to do in that field and they want to go on with the rest of their life and enjoy what they've earned while they were working. So the good is Derek Carr retires. Now, how did this come up? Okay, so last season, Derek Carr was running for a first down against the Giants. He tried to jump over a defender to get a first down, and he landed awkwardly. In the same landing, he broke his wrist, suffered a concussion, and most severely, he injured his right throwing shoulder that had already been surgically repaired. Now, at the time, it didn't seem like a big deal, but it just didn't get any better. Derek Carr said he didn't want to commit to the Saints if he didn't feel like he could be 100% following surgery. Probably doesn't want to go through another surgery like that again anyway. So he decided to retire. And in a very classy statement, this is what the Saints said in their Twitter post. New Orleans Saints X account wrote, Derek Carr has announced his retirement. In late March, while ramping up his preparation for the 2025 season, Derek Carr experienced pain in his right shoulder. It was the first time throwing a football at significant volume since recovering from both a concussion left-hand injury sustained during a play on December 8th, 2024. Derek immediately contacted the Saints medical team. Eventually, medical scans determined objectively that Derek sustained a labral tear and also significant degenerative changes to his rotator cuff. Since that time, Derek, his representation, the Saints medical team, and outside medical experts have worked together to determine the best path forward. Surgery was an option, jeopardizing his entire 2025 season, yet there was no guarantee Derek would return to the level of strength, function, and performance of play to which he was accustomed. Upon consultation with his wife, Heather, Derek decided it is in the best interest of both his family and the Saints organization to retire from the National Football League. And this is Derek Carr's statement. Upon reflection of prayer and in discussion with Heather, I decided to retire from the National Football League. For more than 11 years, we have been incredibly blessed, and we are forever grateful and humbled by this experience. It's difficult to find the right words to express our thanks to all the teammates, coaches, management, ownership, team officials, and especially the fans who made this journey so special. Your unwavering support has meant the world to us. The reason why I said this is a good thing, because if this is truly what Derek Carr wants, upon reflection, prayer, discussion with his family, if this is truly what he wants and he's able to move forward and not look back, this is going to be a very good thing for Derek Carr and the rest of his life. He's still a very young man. He has easily 50 more years of life left. He's only lived 34 so far. If he has 50 more years, that is a great thing for him to be able to move on to the next phase of his life, enjoy all the blessings he's incurred throughout this time in the NFL, not just the salary, but the people he's met, the connections, and the people he's able to touch. Look, do we disagree sometimes on his level of play as far as how good of a quarterback he was? Sure, but it's not about that, okay? This is about celebrating Derek Carr for what he's done in the NFL. I, for one, applaud him for going out there and on his own terms, because he could have had surgery. He could have tried to come back and do, he said, this is it for me. And if this is truly what he wants, I'm very happy for him and wish him the best in retirement. All right, we had the good. Now it's on to the bad. The bad news. Now, this means another curveball, okay, because it may not seem like it's bad news right away, but Hunter Renfrow re-signs with the team in the NFL. The bad news is it's not the Raiders. It's the Panthers. Now, here's a cool thing. The Panthers were Hunter Renfrow's childhood favorite team. He grew up in South Carolina, so this is great for him to be able to go down to his hometown team and play in front of his hometown fans and his family. But where did they all go wrong? Okay, we all speculated, I think, about what was going on with Hunter Renfrow. He wasn't as good as he was. His play dropped off. Something was going on with him. He wasn't as good as he was his last good season with the Raiders when he had over 100 catches and 1,000 yards. There's a lot of things that happened to Hunter Renfrow, a lot of things that were going against him. He only really topped out at like 180 pounds, 185 pounds. He wasn't that big of a receiver. He was about 5'10 maybe. And, he wasn't the fastest, and he just wasn't the biggest. And, all these hits he was taking, and he had concussion issues. So there's a lot of things swirling around at what the problem was. And I think we were all completely off. The main issue really wasn't any of that. It was a health concern, and it was ulcerative colitis. Now, dude, I read a little bit on ulcerative colitis, and it sucks, man. And it really hit Hunter Renfrow hard. One of the big things that happened to Hunter Renfrow was he couldn't keep weight on. He started losing even more weight. So he wasn't that big already, and he started losing even more weight. He went down from like 185 pounds to what his playing weight was to around 150. So he was really, really super skinny. He lost a lot of his muscle mass. At one point during the peak of his sickness, he claims to have 7 consecutive days of over 103 temperature. That's insane, man. That does a lot to your body, especially to your brain too. So it's really good that he was able to come back from this. And I really understand why he wanted to put football on the back burner, because if he was really this sick, he needed to get his body right before he came back to the NFL. Now, unfortunately, the Raiders hands were tied. They had a guy who was extremely sick, didn't know if he was going to get back, had an out as far as, with his contract, and just kind of had to release him. I don't know. I know that a lot of fans didn't like it. I didn't necessarily think it was the best thing to do, but having read what I know now about his illness and where he was, I think it was the right move for Raiders to move on. And it wasn't all about the sickness either. It was about the performance decline. Like after his big season, he had a couple of really poor seasons, and maybe it was kind of the symptoms of ulcerative colitis that were happening during that time, and it kind of hit him after that last season with us. But I mean, it didn't make it look any better. If he would have had that great season, then gotten sick, I think the Raiders would have been a lot more apt to keep him around and see where he went from there. But unfortunately, he did have a performance decline leading into his illness where he had to take a year off. So it just kind of made the decision a little bit easier. Now, as far as the whole timeline goes, Hunter Renfrow says that he felt kind of funky at the end of the 21 season, and he was diagnosed in 2022 in training camp. Now, he felt okay. He didn't feel the best, but he felt okay during the 2022 season. He wanted to gut it out. Just, it didn't work out. He was steadily declining, and it was starting to show in his play. And after he was released by the Raiders in 2024, it was time for him to take a year off and really focus on his health, which he has. He is much healthier now. He's back up to weight. He's feeling better. I don't know if he is 100% yet, but he's feeling better. I think he has a lot of the symptoms under control right now. That allows him to come back and make a comeback in the NFL. One of the crazy things that ignited kind of like the fire to come back to the NFL was watching local high school football games. Now, he worked at a recycling plant. I think that one of his family members was a big wig at or something like that in South Carolina. And he was going to local games and this and that. And it kind of said, you know what? Let me try to get back on the field. And he did. And good for him for working to come back and signing with his hometown team. It's a 1-year deal, not big money, but, kind of a prove-it deal. He's able to come back and be somewhat of a player he was, or even contribute, be a good contributor to this team. It's going to be a little bit more difficult than people think, okay? Okay, let's just take a step back here. He got a year off. He's not completely healthy. This disorder is pretty debilitating at times. Also, he's a little bit older now, and he's not quite as fast as he used to be to play special teams. Probably not going to play special teams, okay? So when you have a receiver who's not a star receiver who doesn't play special teams, they better be pretty dang good. So the kind of lane for Hunter Renfrow to make this team is a little bit slimmer than people might think, but he definitely has a chance. All right, there was the good, there was the bad, and now for the ugly. The ugly is Josh Jacobs is just throwing shade. He just cannot stop talking about the Raiders. Now, I understand he was asked a question about the Raiders, but he just went in full force, both guns blazing. Oh, man, this guy, after reading some of this, I understand why he was a little bit hurt. I understand that he really put a lot of his trust and faith into the Raiders as far as, getting the Raider tattoo on his body, really committing to the Raiders full force. And he really felt disrespected by the franchise, not Mark Davis, but other people in positions of power. Now, Josh Jacobs said that he was, pretty bummed out about hearing that people higher ups in the organization were talking about him behind his back and Now, we're not talking about Mark Davis, we're talking about other people, Josh McDaniels. And it's a bummer. It's a real bummer to really give yourself to a franchise and then hear that people are talking behind your back. It really sucks. If you're maybe a little bit more sensitive, which it just really does show that is very sensitive, okay? But giving so much to an organization, considering where you came from and being homeless in high school and going to Alabama and winning and then going to an organization where you're really not doing that much winning, but you're committing anyway, yeah, I can see where that's a big bummer. One of the stories that Josh Jacobs went into was the whole Kansas City Chiefs logo, dancing on the logo type thing. He wasn't really down with that. He said that, you know what, if you do that, number one, you better be prepared for them to come at you hard. And it was not a pretty day. We lost like 48-9 or something like that in that game. And it was not a good game whatsoever. Josh Jacobs pointed to that moment as a time where he's like, this culture of the team is more about showing out than doing the work. Now, I understand where he's coming from a respect that they're not winning, but it's very difficult for me to sit back and say, yeah, this team is not about the work when you have players like Maxx Crosby on the team who is all about work. Maybe it's a little bit different now. I don't know. There's a lot of new leadership at the top. Derek Carr is gone. Devontae Adams is gone. Some of these other guys are gone who were looked at as leaders, and in some circles were looked at as kind of questionable leaders. Right now, there's a new leadership in the helm. It's Pete Carroll at the top. There's also support by John Spytek and Tom Brady, and there's other players on there. There's Geno Smith and a lot of other players that are coming in who are trying to take over that role of leadership. Would it have been different? Would it have been better? I don't know. We don't know yet. We'll see. But we do know that there was some cracks in the facade of Raider Nation as far as the team goes. This was just a highlight of what Josh Jacobs said. It was ongoing dysfunction in the franchise, how the words, the motto, commitment to excellence, and the product on the field were not in alignment. For those of you who don't remember, okay, it was like December of 2021, okay? The Raiders go into Kansas City to play the Chiefs. Before the game, a bunch of players met at midfield and they started jumping around and stomping and dancing on the Chiefs logo. I don't care. Honestly, I don't mind doing that. I kind of like it, actually. I'm not afraid of anybody. Kind of given that whole vibe of like, you know what, you're not going to bully us or whatever. Yeah, that's one thing. But you've been losing to the Chiefs for a long time now. And maybe once you kind of even that score a little bit, then you can start acting this way. Acting this way before you actually start winning games against this team, that's not good. When talking about this incident, he said that he refused to participate in the locker room. He was like, yo, that was dumb. If you are going to do stuff like that, you better be able to stand on business because they're going to come back hard on you. And it was really difficult for Josh Jacobs to wrap his head around that act because he came from Alabama where they were winning games like almost every single game. And their attitude was a lot more humble and a lot more workmanlike as opposed to this kind of, I don't know, immature, I would say, act when you really haven't shown anything yet. I'm all about showing and not telling. So I understand where Josh Jacobs is coming from. And if you have that issues with, upper management and your contract and stuff like that, I can see where all that kind of weigh on one another. Now, according to Josh Jacobs, he intended to stay with the Raiders. He wanted to stay. It was just the level of disrespect that he felt, and also a couple of other things. Most notably, so there was an incident where Maxx Crosby and Josh Jacobs were in Maxx Crosby's car just waiting it out. The time was coming up for the franchise tag where you're going to sign a player or tag them. And they were just kind of sitting in the car talking about it. I want to stay, this, and that, blah, blah, let's get this done. Well, Josh McDaniels walks up to the car and starts talking to Josh Jacobs about, we want to get this done, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Well, they noticed that Josh McDaniels was on the phone with an unnamed reporter. There's a lot of speculation around who this reporter was, but he was on speakerphone and he was talking to Josh Jacobs about internal contract stuff with the Raiders, but sneakily had a reporter on the phone listening to the conversation. If that were me, if I was Josh Jacobs, I would have told Josh McDaniels to F off. That just another level of just stupidity and another level of just immaturity by Josh McDaniels. We heard about John Simpson not kind of like bowing down to Josh McDaniels and he cuts him, right? We heard a lot of stuff about this, giving Aiden O'Connell Derek Carr's old number. a lot of these things that we hear about Josh Daniels is just very petty and not really what you would think when you say the phrase the Patriot way, right? It's very workmanlike and respectful and straightforward, right? This is definitely not. This is very petty. This is very like schoolboyish. This is very, I don't know, man. It just didn't set the right way. This is partially why this is in the ugly category, because this was an ugly situation. I understand why Josh Jacobs would feel upset about the situation. But to go so in depth on this stuff, now it's great for me because I get content, right? But ultimately, man, just a little bit from me to you, Josh Jacobs, at least. Just let it go, man. Focus on where you are now. You're with a franchise that you're saying is way better than the Raider franchise with the Packers. Okay, go ahead and get a Packers tattoo. That's fine. If you want to talk bad about the Raiders and want to throw shade at the Raiders, that's your prerogative. But it's just making you look a little bit whiny, because I'll tell you something right now, Josh Jacobs. You have not had it the worst out of any NFL player out there. And there are NFL players out there who have had it much worse than you with their original franchise and didn't talk half the crap that you're talking on the Raiders. All right, guys, that's it for the good, the bad, the ugly for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video to all your socials. It's an excellent way to support this channel. All right, that's it for me, everybody. Till next time, peace.